Sun Tzu wrote, "The greatest victory is that which requires no battle." Do you enjoy adventures where there's no combat? In this video, I'll discuss combatless adventures. Original Dungeons and Dragons was very clear about the way you earned experience. Not only did you get it from killing monsters, but you got it for gaining treasure and various things like that, which was an important concept because that way you could have city type adventures where someone goes in and pickpockets someone, and the experience is equal to the amount of gold that they pickpocket, the gold piece value of what they pickpocketed. Unfortunately, the later editions of Dungeons & Dragons took that away, which I think is a major failing, and it's easy to change with a house rule, but that you should get the value of something in experience, not just from killing things, because it sort of eliminates the reason for going into cities. I mean, you only go into cities to buy and sell things, but there's no concept of adventure. It's no the challenges that you can run into with bargaining and going through, and all the little minor quests where there's no killing. You can't play an enforcer. Somebody says, I want you to go over and get something back from someone in town. If you compare it to a video game like Skyrim, a lot of the city adventures are interesting because that you meet a variety of non-player characters. There are various things to do. There's various challenges. But with the current set of rules for D&D, you don't get any experience for any of that. You didn't kill anything, so you get no experience. And which is stupid, in my opinion. That's one where the rules, I think, made a very bad decision when they took away experience for gold. It's something that I think you really need to add back in so that you can encourage combatless adventures where they're dealing with, the ins and outs and the political intrigue and all the challenges that you can run into in a city. Because getting into combat in the city, you get the city guard is going to come in and put a stop to most of those if you've got any kind of city. You really don't want to do anything that raises too much attention inside a city, but in the you get no experience points for that. The same thing, and I've had players who didn't like that. I did some of that. And I've had some players complain there was no combat. And I appreciate that viewpoint, that they wanted to get into the thing where you roll dice. I've had adventures where there's no rolling dice. And I remember someone who watched some of my early videos of the World of Tiglath, and they're going, yeah, it was this whole adventure about interrogating prisoners, where you had found some people who were chained up and were partially alive and so on, and interrogating their prisoners that maybe the characters didn't capture and didn't chain up, but they're prisoners nonetheless, and you want to find out how they ended up there. And you can run into some interesting things like that. But how do you gain experience for that? You gain knowledge of the campaign. You can gain a whole bunch of things like that, but that's where you need to think about changing the rule set, or adding house rules where it's how you play through, how you interact with the society around you, that it's more interesting to do things. Because it says, Sun Tzu said, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. So what happens is, if can you, subdue the creatures without raising a sword. You know, that's much more interesting, and you should get experience for that. You know, shouldn't have to draw blood. That's, you know, it's an interesting. Some people complain about, oh, you don't want to add sex into Dungeons and Dragons, but they have no problem with violence. Oh, you're going out killing monsters. You're going out killing the dragon. You're going out killing, you know, the evil orcs. But why do you have to have that type of combat when you can have commerce and so on? And I enjoy combat, and I set up that in my adventures, but it should also have non-combat elements. You should be able to have the politics. One of the interesting things is you have a character who's reached mid-level, say 7th level, and he walks into, you know, he's a cleric, and he's at 7th level, and he walks into town, and the 5th level cleric who is in the town, who's running it, is worried that he's come to take over his congregation. And you can have all the politics and backstabbing and all the machinations that go on with all of that, and none of it requires shedding any blood. I mean, it's just the politics of introducing the challenges to the characters. So if you do decide to introduce combatless adventures, you have to think about two things. One, will your players go, oh, I really want to roll dice and kill things? Okay, well, you can always, it's easy to add some combat elements into the adventures, but it's also, you need to think about what it means for experience, for how the players progress, because you need to go on, and you know, they need to gain experience. And how do they gain experience? Because maybe not all of them can steal things, because that's more of a rogue thief type thing, where they have to steal things and get the gold piece value. But if a fighter comes up and intimidates someone else and gets the reward and takes it back, he's completed the quest, which is one thing, but he's also got the money, and maybe he gets the intimidation, gets the item, and decides not to return the money, but he's got the goods from someone. So, but he's not shed any blood. He didn't need to break his kneecaps, you know, or, you know, smash his fingers and things like that, or cut off, you know, the fingers. You can go in through the whole various scenarios, but making the adventures more rounded, in my opinion, adds an interesting spice to the adventures, because do you, you know, create that type of challenge. One of the most interesting scenarios that I ran into, which I've mentioned before, was where the party is in an inn, and the cleaning boy, the boy who's cleaning up the tables, slips a note to the party, and it's written in a child's hand saying, if you want to strike a blow for freedom, meet in the graveyard at midnight. Now, of course, you know, the party, of course, is expecting some sort of undead. They come out there, and there's a young boy, and him and his friends have managed to find a war machine. It's a ballista, and they've managed to, the ballista was broken, and they've managed to put it back together, and they're going to try and assassinate one of the leaders of the invading army. And the party knows that this is a really bad idea, but the whole challenge of dealing with the boys, dealing with the, you know, finding the ballista, making sure, you know, what do you do in those type of scenarios, I find was much more interesting, because the player interactions, you know, you set up one thing and you do a switch on them, that it's not, you know, meeting in the graveyard at midnight, of course you expect undead. But of course there's no undead. I don't put any undead at that point in time. That's too blatant and too obvious. But it's much more interesting to do that. The other scenario, which is a fun one, is that people come into town, and they visit the nearest tavern and they hear the story of, oh, the mausoleum in town is haunted. And so they go into the mausoleum and they kill the undead. And when they come out, there's the constable of the town and one of the nobles who lives in the town who's saying they're the ones, they've desecrated our family crypt, and and that's my grandfather's armor and sword that they've stolen. What do you do? This is the type of conflict that adds more interest into the adventure because it's not expected. I find people who have adventures where, oh, we go out and we kill, we go into the dungeon and we kill, and this is this whole 5-room dungeon scenario, which I find extremely stupid, because it doesn't, it's all set up for combat, and it's not the interesting challenges that you run into where there's more to the story, where you've added other elements and maybe they're combatless. There's no combat, that there's no big boss to kill in the dungeon, but there's a question. I remember an adventure where we went through, they got to the end and they found the massive treasure, which was a large gold artifact, extremely large gold artifact. But it was at the top of a mountain, and there's a whole explanation how it got there. But the party, we took a break and went to go have something to eat. And this was in person as opposed to some of the other games which I've described, which are online. And in person, we went out to eat, and we were stopped at a fast food place that was open very late, and we were eating. But the conversation went on, I think it was 2.5 hours, trying to figure out how to get the treasure down. And there was lots of conflict in the party and so on. But you're going on, and it wasn't combat. That was you've given them a challenge that is how playing to their greed of that. But they also, the reason that was important was that they knew that their experience was based upon how much gold they got back. For those of you who've watched Black Sails, it's like how much gold from the Spanish galleon were they able to bring back? That was the interesting challenge in the recent episode, in the recent season of Black Sails. And you've got to bring back the gold, because that's where you get the experience points, is for the gold, not just for killing the creatures, not for just for that. So do you enjoy adventures without combat? I know I do. If you like my video, press the thumbs up button. I'd appreciate that. Or if this interests you, you can always subscribe to my channel. There's a button right above. I look forward to hearing some comments. Tell me what you think about this, and I'll try and reply, and we can see if I'll do some more of these. Thank you.